My name is Doug Kropp. I'm the grain merchandiser for Premier Cooperative. I mainly work out of the Champaign location, but do get around. And we have many of our team members here today that will be presenting and answering questions. Lots of information to go through. We'll do a quick market outlook, then we'll go through a few of the changes, things we got, and then talk about what the main thing is, the crop tour that we're all here for today. So this, where we get these numbers, where our numbers come out, obviously we got to look at where the U.S. is on the size of the crop. And the biggest thing we watch every week, which I'm sure you all do, is we talk about the crop ratings each week and how that comes out on a crop scale. And this week we saw a decline in the corn and the soybean ratings both. And the state of Illinois was down 7% at 67% good to excellent on the corn. So this time of year, we generally see a little bit of a decline in the ratings because the crop's maturing and it's towards the end of the growing season. But that was a little bit of the catalyst as to why we saw a few higher prices yesterday. Once a crop and a harvest, that's the biggest thing here. We had short supplies, so everybody's in a hurry to get the harvest going as far as the end users and some of the demand sources. But of course, Mother Nature has to do with that. And when the crop's going to be ready, as far as the progress in the U.S., we're at 41% of the crop was in the dense stage and 50% in Illinois. I think around here maybe a little bit more than 50%, but right on average for where the crop would be maturity-wise from a U.S. crop, and really in Illinois right on average as well. 50% dented, 5-year average is 47%. Soybean good to excellence, that declined a little bit this week as well. We dropped 1% down to 56% good to excellent. One thing I mentioned on that is we look at the yield being right around 50, we'll talk about that, but a little over 50 bushel, right at 50 bushel. And we're actually rated lower than we were last year as a nation when we had 50.5 bushel, or 51.5 per acre. Soybeans dropping leaves, really there's not much going on there yet. I do hear of a few fields here and there that are starting to turn, but for the most part we're a ways off for any harvest other than the very southern states on the soybeans here. Changes from the week before, just looking at that where we see where the trend has been. We've seen some more erratic changes in the crop conditions reports this year, week to week, where we had Illinois was up 11% on one week, then down 7% the next, and we were down 7% on the good to excellent on corn. This past week, we'll see where we come out this next week. It sure is warm and dry right now, and some rains came through last night, but we'll see what we get for rains. Obviously, we're far enough along in the harvest, it's not going to affect, or in the growing season, affect that much, but across the country, there's still some areas that if we got some rain, it could maybe keep that top end a little bit there, especially in soybeans. Soybean good to excellent, as you can see on this chart here, we had a change of just 1% from the week, like I talked about. Illinois down 4%, however. So you are seeing some of this. You know, we had a week or 10 days ago, obviously a lot of places had way too much rain and some flooding, and that probably affected it some, and of course, the dry weather we've seen here as of late. So going back to where the crop's going to be, what do we think we're going to have for production? We had the August crop report. You know, every month we have the WASDE, or the World Stocks and Demand Issues report by the USDA. Some of them are more updated than others, and more important than others, and obviously we've questioned their accuracy over the last couple of years here for sure, because they've been very erratic. But the August report, we did lower the production on the corn to 174.6 bushels per acre. They were trading at a trend line, or a little bit above a trend line, at 179.5 before the August report. That was a little lower than what people thought they would drop it. So we thought we'd see a little bit of bullish reaction. We didn't really see much, but we did see the lower in the yield and the production down to 14.7 billion bushel. So, you know, that's down from over 15.1 when we originally were looking at for this year's crop. On the soybeans, they came out right at 50 bushel to the acre, and production of 4.339 billion, slightly lower than what they had in July. So we're seeing a little bit of a trend of lower production in a situation where we really need a big crop based on our supplies. The corn, this is a chart borrowed from RJO, basically. Same thing, just putting it in a balance sheet with the acres and where the carryout would be. And if you look at, pointer to work here. If you look at where we were in 2019 and 20, our ending stocks, that crop was 1.9 billion. And then now they increased a little bit because they lowered carryouts a little bit in August, but we have 1.1 billion this year. And RJO is actually a little bit more bullish than that as far as our supply carryover of this year, of a little more exports of 1.1. And then this next year, this will be next year's crop, the crop we're going to harvest. USDA has it here at 1.24 billion bushels. So that's dramatically lower than what we started out with this year, and we kept getting lower. RJO actually has it maybe even tighter than that, down to 6% carryout to use ratio at 936 million bushels. So take whatever that's worth with RJO, but they are thinking that with some of these deterioration in the crops here just as late in the season, and then the issues we've had all year to the west, that this crop could get smaller. Soybeans, carry out there, same thing, RJO is a little more aggressive. USDA has carry out of this year of 160 million, so what we have left like right now, 160 million bushels, which is really pretty tight. We were at 125 at the lowest point this year, and we've seen a little bit of demand reduction because the prices got to where they did, and with both exports as well as domestic use and crush. So we did breach that up from 125 to 160 for a carry-in, but they're down to 155 for a carry-out next year. Well, and obviously we have to have the crop get as big as we think it is. Once again, RJO is down to like 100, which is almost impossible. That's like being out of beans.
Who is RJO?
RJ O'Brien is a brokerage firm out of Chicago that, well, worldwide, but Chicago is their headquarters and one of the brokers we work with. So just a crop analyst and trading firm, a company. Yep. Ending stocks, we just talked about that, but the same thing there. They got us at 160 for this year. And the average estimate was 148, so that was, looked to be a little bit smaller. And then going into next year, looking at the ending stocks on soybeans at 155, and once again, corn at 1.2. So those numbers are really tight. Obviously, we have South America will grow a bean crop in between here again, but we're going to have good demand, it looks like, and prices should be supported, I would think, based on where we're at now. Does that mean we go crazy higher? Maybe not, but it should be supported. This is just another table of the corn yield. You can see that we are 11.5 bushels higher in the state of Illinois than by the USDA than we had last year. And on soybeans, 8.5 bushels higher than last year on soybeans for the state average. 64 bushels for a state average on soybeans, which is pretty darn good. So if you look at world production, that's really what we need to take a look at here and where those numbers are. Big thing to watch on this was just the Brazilian corn crop. We've been watching that. That crop kept getting smaller all year, and they went down to 87 million bushels from 93. And that crop started, or not million bushels, a million metric tons. That started at 125 million metric tons. So that's dropped dramatically from where the projections were. So we have a decent crop here. Brazil had a poor crop. And it's their second corn crop that they're usually exporting this time of year. And that's what they compete with us on the export side. And so they're not going to have as much to do that. So that should really, it would help us with our exports on corn. Some of the same numbers here, just showing the reflections month over month on the world grain ending stocks. We looked at production. And once again, we're seeing a decline a little bit in the world stocks. Pretty much most all the commodities, corn, beans, and wheat, as of we look at a trend year over year. Corn yield, I just threw this in here to see what we've been doing from a trend line perspective. They have us at 174.6. The last 3 years, if the line's kind of going up at an angle, but the last 3 years here, we've actually, as a U.S., done a little bit below trend line yield if the number's right, obviously, but. Soybeans has been a little more above trend, but we're right on trend at 50 bushel. That's right at trend average for the U.S. average on soybeans, what they're projecting for this fall. Obviously, it's a world market, and so we look at what's going on outside our window right here in central Illinois, and that things overall look pretty good. Parts of the U.S. look a little rough. We'll get in there, but this is Brazil's production, and Brazil produces more than the U.S. on soybeans and have been for a while, and that gap is continuing to get bigger. So we always have to remember that even if we have a tight supply here, when we look at the export side in the world market, Brazil is chomping at the bit to help with that supply situation. And Brazil's soybeans, I always talk about their yields being less than ours. They had more disease with rust. They've solved those issues for the most part. And now they're able to produce yields that are very similar to what we do in the U.S. Trendline yield for them this year is 50.4 bushel, almost identical to what we are here. Corn, they're lagging quite a bit yet, by quite a bit. So what are we going to see today on yields, and what are we going to see from other things going forward? And Farmer had their numbers. They were 176.5 on corn, and they were 51.5 on beans. So they were a little higher than what the USDA had. That was a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and then obviously the one that gets a lot of attention, Pro Farmer, and you saw their numbers, but they came out a bigger number than expected on corn at 177. Market tried to trade that a little lower, didn't last that long, and then soybeans at 51.2. So just slightly above the USDA on production. But when you take a bushel or two on 90 million acres, it adds up. Have they been accurate? They have a within 2 or 3%. Well, I don't know how accurate that really is. Like we said, when you talk about 175 bushels, a couple percent to make a big difference on all the acres. Same thing with soybeans. They've been less accurate on soybeans over the years, more volatility as far as their accuracy to what the final yield. We don't know what the final yield is going to be yet, but to what the final USDA soy yield is. We'll take everything you get with another piece of information, but obviously with a grain of salt as far as, what is just a part of your information. A couple things that I just talk about real quick that obviously I think are very important, and that's the export side. Obviously that's really what drives our market. We have so much domestic use we're going to have and so much ethanol we're going to have. That's kind of a static usage, but the exports can change, and just a small percentage in that can make a difference. And we've seen bigger exports as of late with China. So this is just the weekly export inspections that we had this week, and it's something that comes out every week of the export inspections on Monday, and then on Thursday we have the export sales, which are sales that are going to be happening in the future. The export inspections are what's getting inspected at the ports, what's actually on a ship and going to be on a ship and moving out. So then every morning in between when the markets, they trade until 7:30, and then they close until 7:45, then they close till 8:30. In that biscuit break they call it, or that break time, that's when the USDA or whatever will announce export sales. And we've had several days. We had one day, I think it was Friday, where we didn't have a day, but otherwise we had every day in a row where we had export sales announcements, and we had again yesterday and some more again today. And it's that time of year when China comes in and starts buying from us, before our harvest, and so we'll see that. This is a dated chart a little bit, but I just want to talk about the U.S. dollar and the dollar index, and it's been trending higher, and of course that'll affect us when we go to export our products compared to other countries. How is the dollar strength? And what's the cost for those products in U.S. dollars versus other currencies? But we're still very competitive. The dollar has been a little stronger, which we want a fairly strong dollar, but we don't get too carried away. But it's still very competitive when we look at exchanges, and should be conducive to export growth. This is just some headlines on Corona. I won't go through them, but we had these headwinds we continue to have. This coronavirus, you all know, it's hit a lot of us personally, and it's just been a crazy deal, and we keep thinking we're getting over the hump, and then we have some more stories coming back, and U.S. isn't alone. We always hear about how horrible we're doing in the U.S. Well, a lot of the other countries, Japan and other ones, are having issues as well. In fact, much worse. It's just interesting to see that we're seeing some insurgents as we're getting towards the end of the summer. Just something to be aware of as it affects the economy. Drought monitor, this is a week I could have put the new ones in today. It's a little bit better on this morning's drought monitor as far as getting a little better. We had a little more rains in the Dakotas, but it's still very dry. And you can see that in some of the crop ratings in the West, where their crops are significantly lower than what we have east of the Mississippi, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota for sure. Minnesota grows a lot of corn. They have some issues in their dry area there. What's the forecast going to be? Is it going to keep maturing this crop? It looks like the 6 to 10 day looks to be warm than average, which obviously we know what we're getting right now. This maybe will push this maturity along a little bit. Maybe we'll get a little bit, a couple of days earlier on the harvest with this weather, and possibly some premiums for early harvest. So maybe that'll encourage that. Not saying for sure, but there might be. And then on the precipitation, looks like we're going to have equal chances of rain here, maybe above precipitation. But it's kind of like these storms we've had all summer. Some places get 10 inches, and we also get a half an inch. So hopefully we don't have any 10-inch rains again, but they're going to be hit and miss, I would imagine. This is a corn continuous chart, just kind of figure out where the prices might go. This is December corn, the new crop we're going to be harvesting. And we saw our highs back in April and then again May and June. And now we've kind of been in a range bound here around that 550 range here for a while, 540, 550, kind of hanging in there. The market's kind of waiting to see what do we grow in the U.S., what is the yield going to be, and how's this crop going to finish out. But you can see as it tries to go lower, and it did try to go lower, the market seems to want to buy it back up again. On soybeans, same thing. We saw our highs early. I think we've probably seen our highs here, at least before harvest on beans. Bean situation, I think that yield could actually improve a little bit where the corn might drop. But even so, we're still around that $13 to $13.25 mark, $13.50, good range. Those are some still good numbers to sell and to take a look at here if you need to move grain at harvest. So just real quick, because everybody asks what do you think the price is going to do, what's going to happen, just some thoughts. I think short term here, we could see some harvest pressure, especially locally as we get into harvest here in about a month. Then we get where elevators get full and things like that. I think basis could get pressured, both at the processor and the end user. So be aware of that. If there's grain you need to move during harvest time, or you sell off the combine, or you sell when you bring it in, you might want to talk to one of our farm marketing specialists here today, or one of us, and think about if the basis values we have today work, just in case it does get weaker. Now, that being said, I think post-harvest, as we get this crop put away and the demand kicks in because of the export side and some other things, we could see some improvement fairly quickly. But it's just that a localized thing maybe where we have a big crop coming and obviously you got to find a spot for it all. As far as the prices go, same thing. I think we could see a little bit of a trend lower here as we go into harvest in the U.S. The seasonalities of the marketplace, the demand from China is there, but it's just been a little bit slower than we've seen last year, especially on the beans. So export demand will be that driver. Domestic demand and ethanol, where does that go? I think that's pretty static as long as we don't see this COVID take over again and we have a slowdown in the economy. That could affect ethanol and driving. And the overall economic, but without that, I think that stays pretty static and export demand is going to be strong. So does that mean we're going to go to $8 corn? No, I'm not so sure. We have a big supply coming at us here. But as we chew through this and the demand goes, I'm pretty optimistic that we should be able to hold prices fairly close to where we're at now and hopefully a little bit higher as we move into the seasonality into the spring as we try to buy acres again and get the big crop planted again. Either way, right now, prices aren't so bad to maybe put a few more sales on if you're not up to a bigger crop coming. Every farm's different, but maybe put a few more sales on ahead of harvest just to protect against that basis and to lock in some good values. Any questions for me? Otherwise, we'll keep going. We can ask questions at the end here. Yes?
When China or some other company buys grain, do they lock in the dollar also, the price of the dollar?
Yep, quite often they'll lock in. If they lock in a price of grain, they'll trade the currency behind it as well. Yep.
I was always curious about that.
Yep. That's obviously on the local level and from the co-op side, we don't do that side. But if you're going to be a foreign country buying the grain, you're going to want to watch that currency rate and protect that because that could be a big difference for them. Yeah. Okay. Next.
Thanks, Doug.
Yep.
My name's Sean Kincaid. I'm the CFO. So before we get to the crop tour results, I want to talk a little bit about our accounting system change. And Tanner in our Dewey office will help me kind of walk through a few reports because we want to make sure that this change goes well for you. So backing up before we get to reports, I want to talk about really the management decision and the board level decision as to why we made a change. Our prior accounting software was called Control. Control was an IBM based company, really developed in the early to mid 90s. Nothing about their software had really improved since the 90s. And as you can imagine, with all of your guys' software dependent machinery, our stuff is a little bit behind. So we want to get better report writing for you guys and also better operations for our scale folks. The scale folks, we want to make sure that we can get you in and out of the facility as fast as possible and really put the pressure on the machinery to, the pits and the legs to unload you. So with that, the new software is called AgVance. AgVance is run by over 600 companies throughout the United States and Canada. It's actually based out of Shelbyville, so we decided on AgVance based on its locale, but also its progressive development. They've got about 50 to 70 developers. I just call them, nerds in the closet, just trying to write code. And they look to move more to the types of things that you guys are used to with the bigger companies that you're dealing with, whether it be, your climates or whatever. So AgVance is nice and local. We've got really good support from them versus our prior software. We only had 2 support staff at Control. So the folks that you deal with at the local elevator you should see if you have a question and they can't solve it, they should be able to tap a pretty broad audience to get the answer and revert back to you. With AgVance, a few things you'll notice is different reports, and Tanner will go through each of those in detail. But you'll also notice an improved, in my opinion, customer app. We are still in the process of getting everybody signed up for the app that has interest. So if you do have interest, please find me or one of your elevator folks and give them your email address. That's all they really need to get you set up, and then we'll be off and running with that. After Tanner talks, I'm gonna kind of go through the grower portal that we're calling it. This is somewhere where you can find bids, make offers, and find contracts or scale tickets. And you'll notice in the future those scale tickets will be live to the app. So if you do have the app and you're waiting on the radio for the guy to say what the grades were, we'll actually be able to post that live for you in the combine. So all you'd have to do is refresh and say, this ticket, what was the grades? Boom, and you'll have the information faster than the guy that can radio to you. So with that, Tanner, if you could walk them through some reports. Any questions at the end, I'll be happy to take as well.
All right, everybody bear with me. I'm a little, since I went out in some corn, stuffy, because I'm like plugged up, but not sick, not COVID. I'm sure of that. Just sinuses. All right, so we're going to start. Tracy went through this with the ladies marketing group. They really liked it. They were really appreciative of it. I thought it would be really good to go through with you guys. Don't kill the messenger. I'm just the guy showing you what stuff looks like, and we will go through that together. But I thought it was very important that you guys see the paperwork that you're going to see beforehand, and the guys have some paper copies they're going to pass out so you can see it a little bigger and a little closer. Things are slightly different, not drastically different. We can still do the things that we've done in the past. That's, not changing on that end, but things will look just a little bit different. The biggest thing, before you guys leave, they're going to have the yield sheets back at the back table. We also have split sheets. We've asked and called, and the girls have been calling all week again. If you have not gotten us your fields and splits, we really need those. Sean said we are beginning today that import process of those. So Tracy's told all her guys, you do not want to be that guy at the scale that everybody's waiting on because your field is not in the system. You got to get set up. So please be sure that you get us your fields and your splits, and it helps immensely to know which crop it is going into or going to be and which crop will be coming in off that field this year, so we have that set up in advance and we can just grab it and go.
If you do it at one elevator, but you go to another one, you have to do it to both.
We'll be able to switch that. We just need to call, like, let's just say that you're hauling into Royal and for whatever reason, you're going to Thomasboro on this load. You just call up, be like, hey, this field's going to Thomasboro. And call us in advance. We'll get it switched over so they have it pulled up on the scale. We'll be able to switch that around. The field, all that'll be the same, but it's just that phone call of, hey, I've been going to Royal all day. These last couple loads, you're going to go to Thomasboro.
But if your question was, do you need to give splits in each location?
No. Yeah, no.
Basically, no. So the control was an old system, meaning each location was essentially separate. Now Advance is live in the cloud, your split will be.
It will stay with that field no matter which location you go to. Tickets. This is what scale tickets are going to look like. This one's out of Dewey. We are putting outbound scale ticket printers, right, at several locations that maybe haven't had them before that are automated on that end. But this is what a Dewey ticket looks like. So it's going to be a big half sheet of paper, kind of like they've always been. But this is what that information will look like. Obviously, we've whited out some stuff and handwritten some stuff. That will all be automated on the ticket. But that is what your scale ticket will look like. Not much different than what you've seen. Your information will be on the right-hand side, and then it'll have your field name in there. Your splits at the bottom. Delivery sheet. So a lot of guys want delivery sheets, proof of yield sheets, right? This one, it's a sample we had. This is new. Not a lot of guys have brought grain in. This one had 2 loads on it. But when you come in and ask for proof of yield sheets, you'll be able to print that by field, and then that'll have all your tickets, all your loads on it. Again, like we've had before, it will have the field name on it that you've associated with that farm.
So one point to make there is that will be attached to the field, what we're gonna call the farm. So if you deliver to 2 different elevators, at the end of the year, the proof of yield will show both what we call summary sheets, delivery sheets from both elevators together.
It'll be on one sheet.
It'll be on one sheet showing totals, and then also we'll have, broken out in your share and total load.
And on why I'm thinking about the splits. So a lot of guys, Maynard in the past had set some stuff up where it was a bunch of numbers, and a lot of times it's an FSA number, and it was jumbled up with some letters in the middle of it, and followed by some more numbers, and it was really confusing, and fields were very similar, just a slight letter change. A lot of guys have used this as an opportunity, and we're encouraging this, if this is how you want to do it, to just call that the home 80 or the back 40, whatever we're naming it. Let's name it that. And then if you want to reference an FSA number or something like that on it, on our split sheet form, we have that, and we will put that in the comment section. So it will print under the description. But this is that opportunity to do away with a multi-number letter thing that nobody can ever remember what it is, and just call it the actual field name that you identify it as commonly. This is just a purchase price contract. Anybody that's done a contract recently has seen the new contracts. Again, same type of thing, just a little bit different layout, a little different look with our logo at the top. But that is a straight purchase price contract, has the final cash price on it only. An HTA will have a futures price, a basis will have basis, but they are not broken down on that individual contract. It just gives you your final cash price that you get. A lot of times we're putting comments in there that, hey, this and this is married together. If it came from a specialty contract or something like that, those notes are in there that has a lot of that math broke down for guys. Oh, wrong button. Position report. So this is a page that a lot of guys want post-harvest. Say you've delivered all your grains in, you don't remember what's where, you want the breakdown of that. We can run this report. This is going to tell you, hey, I've got this many beans in at Dewey, this many beans in at Thomasboro, this many beans in at Dillsburg, and the exact same for corn also. So then it'll give you your total at the bottom, but you will know how much grain is sitting in which elevator in which position it is under, whether it's under a basis contract, whether it's under a delay price, open storage, whatever that is. But this will be the report you guys will ask for. This will be the report we will give you that will have everything broken down. It will also, it'll show your contracts and stuff like here at the bottom. that they have. Settlement pages. So whenever when we do a settlement, whether you, if you get a check, it's going to have a lot of information on the top part of the check. The bottom part will be, the check that you'd cash or take to the bank. And then this sheet will be attached to that. If you're ACH, you'll get this sheet only, as we'll direct deposit the money. But this is what your settlement sheets are going to look like. All your information will be on there and broken down. Again, information you've had, just a little different format. This will be your deferred pay contracts. So, you bring grain in the fall, you say, hey, sell it, but don't pay me till January 1st. That is this is the contract we will send in the mail for that states that. Now, the question that got asked at the ladies' meeting, and Sean and Tim can answer this better. I'm sure there's people in this room going to ask this. Can we have separate checks for corn and soybeans?
It will be always separate checks for corn and soybeans.
So your corn and soybeans will not come on a check together. You will always have a corn check and a bean check. And that got brought up and asked, is a lot of people liked that separate. Last year, that all got combined into one. Going forward, from this point forward, they will always be two separate checks. One for corn, one for beans. That is all I have on this paperwork. So now is your guys' time to ask questions. Sean's going to be the one with a lot of the answers on that, as he's got the most time with AgVance on this process. But I know there's questions.
If you make an offer and and the price doesn't hit for a while, are you gonna have to sign a paper on that too?
No, we have not been sending, so we're still going through that process. These guys know more, but we're in the process right now of our offers are going in on bar charts. Bar charts is our backside system. Like when you look at our website, that's why our bids look a little different and stuff. We went from DTN to bar charts. So we are putting offers in on bar charts. We are currently today not sending a paper contract saying, hey, you put an offer in for $5.50 corn, right? You will get the paper contract when the offer hits. But are they going to have where are we coming time or
So
electronically on it?
if you're putting in an offer electronically yourself, you can still call the offices and make offers over the phone. That still exists. Happy to take those. If you're doing it electronically, you can also interact electronically, whether it be, when that offer does fill, sign that contract electronically. So there'll be, for the folks that want it, it's there. For the folks that don't, we'll still mail it, no problem. But for right now, we're not going to require that signature on the offer.
And he will go through the app. That's after lunch. For anybody that doesn't know, after lunch, Sean is going to go through the app or online version of all this, which has a lot of new features that are kind of convenient for those people that want to do that way of doing business or want access to that type of information. But yeah, so right today, we're not sending out the paper contract for the offer. So many times I'd put an offer in and it was 3 cents away, and that same day it would hit, or the next day I'm like, why? I just said on that contract. If it was a penny or two away, I'd said hold the contract.
If
I'm
you're
like,
doing it
why mail
digitally,
it?
we know it was you because you had your sign in. If you're doing it verbally, we trust your word. There you go.
If we make an offer on a Sunday night, it doesn't get filled till you open the next day, right?
Correct. So that offer, well, we have some safeguards in place to make sure that a customer was not to make a $2 corn offer and then get filled immediately. We want to make sure it goes through merchandising approval so that somebody doesn't get stuck with the price, the disfavorable price that they weren't trying to get. So basically, when an offer is made electronically, it goes to merchandising. He approves it to work, and then and it sends them an email immediately. So even Sunday night, it's going to send Doug and the merchandising staff an email. He'll acknowledge it, it'll work, and then when it fills, it'll send Doug another email that, hey, this is good to go. It's now a purchase contract. We're off.
So it all depends if I'm sleeping or watching the email or not. It's there Monday night or Sunday night or first thing Monday, but I watch it pretty regularly. So even on a Sunday night, it's quite likely if you put it in, we could have it in and working right away.
He is from Wisconsin and a Packers fan, so it probably depends on how much beer he's drink after the Packers lose.
And just some background as to why we want to put those safeguards. We're not very far off from those offers. being able to trigger a futures contract to hedge on our side. And we would hate for the offer to be put in incorrectly to trigger the hedge, and then for the market to move and for either party to have financial loss. So we want to make sure that somebody says that is a good offer. That's what he was trying to accomplish.
Are we gonna write separate contracts then for each of these fields?
You can, you do not have to. So we have a percentage of our customers that wish to sell grain on a field. If you are one of those customers, you just say, hey, this contract is for Susan's 80. And then that contract at that moment in time will be put in as Susan's 80. And then only grain that's delivered on Susan's 80 will fill that contract. If you do not wish to do it that way, you can just leave that verbiage out of your communication to the scale person or the settlement person, and just sell, hey, I'm Bob, I'm selling,
Perfect time to go through the 7-day rule on this system.
Click back to the scale ticket.
So, Premier's policy in the past has always been to have a disposition on that scale ticket within 7 days. So you've been getting phone calls from our staff saying, hey, what do you want to do with this grain? What do you want to do with this grain? And you've got 7 days, you've got 7 days. We are going to enforce that moving forward. The system actually enforces that, so that's not something that it's a Premier decision. The system takes from the date of delivery of the ticket and gives you 7 days to make changes. So if you wanted it in open storage and then within 7 days you said, nah, I actually wanted the price later or something like that, you can make those changes. After 7 days, if you haven't made your change, it's going to, if you haven't told our elevator staff what you want to do with that grain, and it comes in and you haven't said anything, it will go to open storage automatically, and open storage charges will apply. And that's from the date of ticket delivery, not from the date of the end of the
Completion of the field.
completion of the field or completion of harvest. I know there's been confusion around that, and there was a small group of folks that thought that the longer they chose to not inform our staff, the less storage they might get charged. That always has been retroactive. So even if we didn't hear from you and you didn't tell us for 15 days, you're always getting charged storage from the date of delivery of the ticket. So nothing's changing on that. We're just enforcing it by the ticket.
And if you know that you want delay price instead of open storage, note that up front.
Yeah.
And we can put that as the position. Or if you know you want to fill your contracts first, note that up front and we will make it where it applies to the contracts. Then all the overrun goes to delay price.
So when you guys are rolling between fields, you just drop the head and you're going to the next field. You're calling the elevator saying, hey, done with this field, on to this one. Tell our folks are going to ask you, what do you want to do with that farm? If you say, I don't know, it's going to go to open storage and you have 7 days to change that. If you say, I want it to go to DP, it'll go to DP the moment you deliver that grain. Of course, it will fill contracts first.
It'll automatically fill contracts.
Any contract, if you have contracts by farm, it'll fill those first. If you don't have them by farm, then it'll fill others. So just another backstory, we had folks, we closed at 7 o'clock and our folks, all the grain would be in pole who were delivered, and they racked up a bunch of phone calls to everybody throughout the day, and they would spend from 7 o'clock at night until 8 or 9 o'clock moving that grain to the places that you wanted it to go. Now we're just asking that question up front so that they can just do it from the time the ticket's created, and people like Tracy aren't at the elevator till 9 o'clock at night and then have to be there at 6:30 the next morning. Any other questions? Happy to answer. We want it to go smooth.
Comments, concerns? Him and Tim are the man, so. I know we get a lot of them, but they're the ones with a lot of the answers.
We are good in days or field or farms, even though nothing's changed from last year. Still need to
If you could, we would very much appreciate it. What we found is over the years, we racked up a database of fields that, grandpa farmed, grandpa's no longer here. So we wanna get what you're farming today and only half what you're farming today. So we didn't wanna bring in a junk data set. So we are reaching out. If you haven't been reached out to yet, we are still reaching out to get those. And like Tanner said,
There's
if
templates
it's
back
easy
there.
for you, we've got sheets in the back to you can take them.
It's pretty painless. The guys that have done it, there's actually been a lot of guys grateful to do it because they didn't like the way stuff was called. They wanted to clean up the list. It's many, many years worth of data that was in there and stuff getting called 5 different names at 5 different places. They're grateful to clean that up. So,
So how come on my app or whatever, the price always goes to bond bill every day, next day or something like that, instead of sales?
Saving, we're still working on that. That's definitely something we've heard and we don't want it to occur. It's because it's alphabetical and Bonneville is the first one in the alphabet for our list of locations. So we're trying to get it to save to your, if you're delivering to Royal or whatever, we want it to save to Royal. Yes, ma'am. That's a great question. I do not believe so, but I don't think that's ever been our, we would consider that in the grace period. We've never done that in the past, but I want to make sure I can follow back up with you, but the answer is no right off the bat. The challenge, we can always go from DP or from open storage to DP if you were wanting to change that, because open storage, the title of the grain remains with you upon going to delayed price or price later. The title of that grain transfers to the elevator to allow the elevator to ship that grain, even though there's no price established on that grain. So we can always go from open storage to DP. We can not go from DP back to open storage, but going from DP to priced, I don't see as to why there would be any fees associated with the drop charge or anything like that.
Now for the grand down over here.
anything else? All
Get
right,
the
we'll go
numbers
on. That's what I'm after. Okay, so first of all, thank everybody for the help. She's got the guys up there. A lot of the farmers helped at a lot of the facilities, and we appreciate that. It's gonna have right here. We had 355 samples taken, so that's pretty good. That's a pretty good data set across Champaign County, a little bit over into Vermilion, but that's a pretty good number to take. That gives us a pretty good representation of what we see. Total ears counted was 1,065. So you guys will see shortly, I have it broke down population, big thing. But average population came in at 32,000 with a range of 24 to 40. 82% fell into 36,000. She's got the stats there. 10% above 36,000. You guys will see some more on that here pretty quickly. So 79% of the fields are under 200, 195 between 200 and 250, 81 fields at 250 and above. My highest, there says a 319. I don't know who had the 319. I had a 318 out of Gifford. I don't remember which group took it, but that group, we had a 318 over at Gifford. Huge 20-inch round or 20 rounds. We had a 220 rounds, 22 round. They're all same length, like 42 long, I believe. So pretty impressive that one was. Population, this is it. We all know I showed the same slide last year. You get, 20-inch rows, guys. Listen to the BLO. We need to be up in that 42,000 range. But as it goes up, the yields go up with it. 30-inch rows, Belo's going to tell you 38,000 final stand, not planted. Final stand is the optimum if everything else is right to optimize yield. We had all the way up to 40. I know there's some guys planting 40 to try to get to that 38. Big difference though when you get north of 36,000, 35,000. That's when the yields really start to jump off the table. And I'm assuming guys that are up there are probably managing fertility, nitrogen, and fungicides appropriately. That being said, through the fields, I don't remember what the next slide is. I don't want to tip it off too quick. Going through the fields, the big things that we were seeing was a lot of black tar spot. That has arrived in Champaign County. Will be very interesting to manage moving forward. You know, that's not just going to go away. So we're going to have to figure out how to manage that. And it was here and pretty ugly in a few fields. The seed guys are telling me it's kind of hybrid specific. You know, you can talk to them more about that. How do we manage that going forward? But it has arrived and it's ugly. Gray leaf spot had moved in. Again, fungicide, when we would step into the field, you knew pretty quickly if the field was sprayed or not sprayed. 2018, the yield data I was working with back then, coming out of FS, I gave it away, was 20 to 40 bushel difference. So take that into account when we're looking at this. But there is what our yield is, guys. The biggest one we've had, 228. 2018 was 216. And the biggest one before that was 2016 at 224. So we beat the biggest Premier Crop Tour yield results by 4 bushel. The winner was Thomasboro. Jeff's not here, but Jeff want to know why he was always the winner. But he's got to have a lot of bushels to handle, that's for sure. They came in at 263. Thomasboro, and those guys that took in on that, I had a calculation wrong that day, I told you. Jessica caught it when we were updating the sheet. So Thomasboro and Leverett were the same. They came in. And Lane said Bonneville and Rising, the way it says Bonneville and Muhammad, that should be Bonneville and Rising, the way that's in there. Thomasboro's the winner. Things looked really good. And the $1 million question that nobody has the answer to, everybody has their own opinion, is what is our divider? We use 90. We've used 90 every year. We continue to use 90 as we're looking for that year-to-year consistency just from what is the yield. Talking to some agronomists and hearing Belo is saying we could probably use 80 for sure, 75 in a lot of places. Some high yield stuff, he's using all the way down to 65 as his divider, which changes things dramatically. He said there will be some 70s, but 75 to 80 is what Belo is saying our dividers should be coming out of this season. But, you know, that's all to be seen. You know, that'll also be dependent upon whether you were at Dewey, got 6 inches of rain, or, you know, southeast part of the county that didn't get much at all. But that's the variation on the slide, what it looks like when you change your divider, which greatly impacts things. But we're using 90 as the number, which is what the number we've always used. Yeah, just from the year-to-year consistency on it. There's only one under 200, and that's Riley, which I can understand that out of Riley. For those people that want, so he's going to show this, he's going to walk through this. For those people that want set up on this and are not set up yet, we can help get you set up today. Jessica's still around here. She's been doing a ton of those for me. She can help get guys set up on that. And if you are linked to other people within your family or operation, and they give us permission to link you guys together, we can link you guys up so you have access to their stuff. But we need permission from them on that.
If we want to go through this, basically this will be the Premier app. This is the browser version. You'll also be able to get it on your phones in the Apple iTunes Store or on Google Play. Just look up Premier Cooperative, and then the setup will all be done when you give your email address to the elevator person. So first thing you're going to see is just bids come in. We are working on getting the nearby bid in on the app, but how you change that if you're looking at the wrong location. DLVD, Dewey, means delivered Dewey. If you wanted to see what Deliver Dillsburg was. All you do is click that. And those bids are coming in on a slight delay from bar chart, but they will populate both corn and soybeans. One thing, if there's any non-GMO growers in the room, we are pricing everything on our app and on our website as the base price. That will be plus the premium, and that premium will be applied to those bushels at the time of settlement. So just know that when you're looking at these prices, that's not all you'll see. On the left side of the screen, though, as far as maneuverability, you'll see some settings type things, but really you're going to want to be all the way down here at grain if you're a grain customer. And then there's going to be energy if you're an energy customer. We'll go through grain first. This is a place where you can see your scale tickets live, like I said, view your offers, view your contracts, and view your settlement checks. So if you do have the app and you just called in to Tracy and she said that, hey, I've got a check for you, or hey, I just did an ACH for you, and you want to see the supporting documents, that will also be here, and you can just view what you had. And then if there's any contracts to be signed, they'll show up right there as well.
You can turn on, be sure you select the push notifications when you download that app, right? So whenever we put a contract in, if you make a sale or whatever, instead of us mailing you the contract or emailing you the contract, it'll send you a push notification to log into the app, and you can sign that contract electronically. We'll have it right back, and we don't have to paper trail it all the way down all the time.
The only thing we cannot sign electronically is price later contracts. Those are regulated by the state of Illinois, and nothing's easy with them. So we're the only state, to my knowledge, that cannot sign price laters electronically to this point. If you're an energy customer, which if you're not, we hope to see how we can make you one. Garrett's in the room somewhere right here. On the energy side of things, there's not going to be anything that populates because this is just a test data set, but you'll be able to see any loads that were dropped at your place, basically the invoice for that load, how many gallons, any price that was on it. So that'll show up. And then at the end of the month, if you were to have any statements from Premier, whether it be, at the end of the year on grain or by month on energy, you would be able to see all of your statements and print out anything that you wanted to there. And a lot of these things on this website are sorted by date range. And on the app, you can also sort by date range. So I guess feel free to ask questions to our folks. They're also learning, but I think that this will be basically the way of getting better information out to you guys in a faster manner as we go forward. Yes, sir.
I've been on the website or whatever, I don't have the app yet, but I could not find, can you make an offer from that? I could not find a link where you could.
We have not turned that on yet, but we will be. So as Tanner mentioned, Bar Chart is the company. It's DTN's replacement. DTN has really not improved technology-wise, so we went Bar Chart. And they're working on a few things, an API, basically nerd talk for connecting Bar Chart and AgVance, our system to their system. So the offer will come through theirs, get approved by merchandising, fill, and then flow into AgVance under your customer account. So a lot of these things have to talk back and forth. We're working on that. Anticipate in the next 30 days, we'll be able to roll that piece out. It'll just all of a sudden start showing up. Yep.
You have the old Premier app, you need to download a new one.
Correct. If you had Connection Central that was Control or Premier's prior app, it is no longer to work. The username does not work, and the password will not work. So to get set up, we did import a few of those. There was over 1,000 accounts. Some of the emails were no longer good. So if you did not get an email triggering you to set up a new account, that means your email was out of date on our system. Go ahead and just call up one of our elevators and give us your email address, and we'll send you out a way to sign up for a password, and then it'll link.